Doctor, could you tell us a bit about the pan localization project and what all it has achieved so far?
PAN localization project was initially designed to address the accessibility of content for
Yeah,
people. Most of the
yeah. In
Asian,
Pakistan or beyond?
mo- generally the scope of the project's been the whole of Asia.
I see.
So uh, the main issue was that there is a lot of internet activity going on in the world,
Yeah,
but most of that is in languages which we don't speak in Asia.
yeah,
Most of the uh, content, online content, is in Chinese and English,
right.
and most of the population in uh, Asian countries is more focused on, well, can only speak and write languages which are obviously not Chinese and English.
Yeah, yeah,
There are 3,000 languages in Asia,
yeah.
and
So
those
when was it
languages are
started?
not addressed.
Sorry, when was it started, and what all has it taken up so far?
This started in 2003.
I see.
We started with a group of 6 countries, which were very quickly increased to 7 countries.
Which is?
Um, we started with Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, Laos, um, Nepal,
Yeah,
and Sri Lanka, and very included Afghanistan very
yeah.
quickly into it. The whole project was coordinated through Pakistan,
I see.
um, but Pakistan was not an active member in the first
Yeah,
phase. Um so once the initial part was mostly enabling the very basics,
yeah.
which
Like,
means the operating system,
yeah,
developing the keyboards, the fonts,
yeah.
because for most of these languages, even at national level, uh, even doing the very basic word processing or very
Was
basic
tough,
emailing
if
was
not
not
impossible.
possible in many cases.
Impossible.
For example, in Bhutan,
Yeah,
Zonka is used, but Zonka was not supported by any platform actually.
yeah.
So what we did in Bhutan
Couldn't the
was,
market have taken up these solutions, or were they too small languages or low
in many
purchasing power?
cases, the market obviously is driven by commercial interest.
Yeah,
Many of these countries
yeah,
are not big enough markets for these,
yeah,
especially in the case of Bhutan.
yeah,
There are 600,000 people,
yeah,
and very few of them have actually access.
yeah.
So at the end of the day, there is no commercial interest.
Right.
Uh, so what we did in this project in Bhutan, for example, was the main partners were Department of Information Technology
Yeah,
and Zonka Development Authority,
yeah.
and we developed a complete Linux-based open source solution
I see.
for Zonka language.
And in the other languages, what all was attained?
Um, there has been a variety of things which
Yeah.
we've done. The project was not central in a way.
Okay.
It was very decentralized. We went to each country which was a
And they
partner,
decided.
and they decided what was the need of where their technology levels were for
So
the
which
language.
country did the best so far?
Um, I think it's each country did quite a bit of work in their own
I see.
capacity context.
Okay, okay.
So there were countries which had less capacity to start
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
like Bhutan or
Yeah, obviously.
Laos or Cambodia.
I see.
Uh, but they developed their capacity. They did fonts. They
I see.
did keyboards. They did many of those things which were very basic and missing.
I see.
Some of the more advanced partners were Bangladesh and
I
Sri
see.
Lanka, where some of the basic work was already done.
I see.
So they moved on to more advanced applications
Okay.
which were relevant in their context.
Yeah, like
Um, so Bangladesh team went more into spell checkers for
I see.
Bangla, and Sri Lanka team, for example, went into OCR and text-to-speech systems.
and all of this was satisfactorily worked out.
We have now systems working.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of this research, the basic stuff is obviously done and
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
Some of the more advanced applications like OCR and text-to-speech systems have workable models out.
I see.
But much of this research obviously needs to continue in longer term as well, and the quality needs to be improved
So
further.
this is both for the GNU Linux and the Microsoft platforms?
Most of it is open source.
I see.
Some countries did not actually have an open source option when we started.
I see.
So open source platform was not mature enough to
Yeah. To
uh,
deploy it.
deploy some of these languages, because some of the writing systems are very complex.
Okay.
So in those cases where we found that, so our aim was to find an immediate solution,
Yeah.
whatever that was. in the local language for people because the need was immediate.
Yeah, yeah. Time and
Uh,
tide waits for no man.
so where there was possibility to do it on open source, we preferred open
Okay.
source. But where there was no possibility of doing
Yeah.
it in the shorter term in open source,
Yeah.
we did parallel research to develop the open
I
source.
see.
But the immediate solution was deployed on proprietary
I
platforms.
see. I see. And as far as the state of computing in Urdu goes, can you give us an idea on that today? How
Yeah.
far is it progressed? What are the problems?
For Urdu, most of the basic work's done.
Yeah.
Over last 10 years or so, we've developed standards, we
Your
updated
institution itself.
Unicode.
Your
Uh,
insti-
our institute's been obviously working on it, but wherever possible,
that is CRLP
CRULP, Center for Research in Urdu Language Processing,
in
which
Lahore.
is at National University in Lahore. Um, so what we've worked with the government
Yeah.
of Pakistan in our case,
Yeah.
and developed fonts and keyboard standards,
I
and
see.
so some of the standards we can't do ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to go back to the government and actually get the standards done from there.
Right. Right.
But we do the homework, we do the advocacy
I see.
to get the government involved in standards development, and eventually hold facilitate debate at national level,
Yeah.
and eventually help develop the standard itself.
Things like fonts and those kind of things. Are you all willing to share them across the border with Urdu populations in India?
So there is already a lot of cooperation. I think most of the work which is being done in uh, research centers, both in Pakistan and India,
Yeah.
is available through. And there is actually a lot of work done in India as well. So I don't think
Which
we should.
places?
Um, there has been, I know of Open Office release,
I see.
Urdu localized release, Firefox. Some of these applications have been released in India. We've actually used some of that open source
But it
work.
makes sense to share. I mean, both ways in that sense.
Yes, obviously it's shared,
Yeah.
but it's shared in sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. So
Through the projects.
I'll give you an example where we've actually shared work which was done in India.
I see.
So there was actually open source translation of applications like OpenOffice and Firefox, which were already available.
I see.
But some of the terminology translation which is
Was
done in
different,
India,
yeah, different.
the vocabulary becomes a little different from Indian
That's
context,
true.
which is not very understandable by a common
Of
person
course.
in Pakistan. And I would imagine it would be
Of course.
vice versa.
That's true.
So what we did was since it's open source, we took that terminology
I see.
that helped us do 60-70% of the work.
I see.
But
And
we
adapted
obviously
it.
adapted that to Pakistani
needs.
context, but that made our work easier.
I see.
Instead of doing everything from scratch, we actually used the work which was done by,
Yeah.
and then we used the standard terminology which has been approved by Government of Pakistan
I see.
through its National Language Authority,
I see.
and we merged. So
Okay.
we were using a translation memory tool, for example, and the translation memory tool allows you to use multiple
Options.
options. So we had put in all the possible translations from all the sources,
I see.
and then we went through the list and chose
Okay.
the best one from Pakistani context.
As far as Urdu computing goes, what is possible today for the common man? Blogs, wikis, mailing lists,
Yes, everything is possible.
everything.
The
Is it
common
being
things is
used
possible.
sufficiently or
That's where I think more education needs to be done.
Why-
We're doing
why?
some programs in schools, but
Yeah.
generally there is accessibility issues
I see.
as far as
Keyboards?
hardware is
hardware?
concerned.
Keyboards?
Keyboards are published in
Yeah.
Urdu,
Yeah.
but they're not widely used.
I
So
see.
people actually don't know about it. Actually, we didn't know about it
I see.
until we did a recent program supported by IDRC in rural areas. We were doing some training of rural children in their schools,
I see.
and we were setting up labs there.
I see.
And we wanted to use Urdu keyboards, and we actually didn't know. We were actually thinking of putting stickers on
I
the
see.
keys
I
and
see.
making customized keyboards. But we actually went to the market, checked, and we were, to our surprise, there were actually keyboards printed and available.
I see.
And we actually didn't have to go through the exercise and just buy. We just bought the keyboards and deployed them.
I see.
So-
In India, we have this problem where techies learn engineering in English.
Yeah.
So they are not well equipped to solve other people's problems in the local language. Do you all have something similar like
Yeah,
that?
we had the same problem.
I see. Engineering education being in English.
The whole of education system is in
Higher
English,
education.
all the higher education
I
system.
see.
So one does not relate to But one of the very interesting thing which we did
Yeah.
was since we are not an engineering only
Yeah.
center, we do a lot of linguistics. So we have a lot of people who've done an MA in Urdu,
I see.
which are part of the team.
Okay. Okay.
So when we are developing this training program,
I see.
we actually did not involve
Techies alone.
techies. The techies were
I see.
used at the second tier.
I see.
We actually trained the MA Urdu
Okay.
staff and asked them to write the books and training materials. And techies were only verifying what they had written.
What's your designation on the project?
I am the regional coordinator for pan localization project
For full of Asia.
for the whole of Asia.
And any website people could visit?
Yes, it's www.panl10n L10n, which stands for localization,
Yeah.
.net. Pan localization, panl10n.net.
Thank you and all the best.
Okay.